I had just folded the last towel. The corners lined up, the way Mum used to show me, sharp and proud. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and the rosemary I'd left simmering on the stove, for no real reason other than it made things feel contained, safe. I was humming that old George Strait song she used to hum, when the day finally slowed down. I never much liked country, but tonight, it felt like armor. The TV was on low, muted, showing some cooking competition I wasn't following. I sat down at the kitchen table, the wood warm from the sunlight that had clung to it all afternoon. I picked up a linen napkin, one of the old ones, cream-colored, soft at the edges. I'd folded it into the shape of an oak leaf years ago, back when I thought keeping small traditions made a family. My phone buzzed on the counter. A single text. Blanche. Just seeing her name gave me that old familiar pinch, right between the ribs. I didn't expect a thank you. Not from her. Not anymore. But I also didn't expect what she wrote. Stay home. You're not in the will. I didn't move. Not right away. My fingers hovered above the screen, frozen, like they'd touched something burning. The house didn't shake. I did. A breath caught in my throat. Not from surprise hell. This wasn't the first slap in the face from her, but from how direct it was. Cold. No dressing it up. I read it again. Then again. Stay home. You're not in the will. There was a second where my body thought about crying, but my mind stepped in faster. I smiled. Not out of joy, God. No, but one of those tight little grins that barely makes it past your lips. I typed 2 words back. Got it. And then I turned the screen off. No punctuation. No follow-up. No questions. Got it. The dishwasher beeped, and I moved like someone who hadn't just been cut off from the last thread of decency in her own bloodline. I stacked plates, rinsed the mugs, washed the knife I'd used to slice and tomatoes earlier, one by one, like a ritual. Blanche had always been the one who took charge, hadn't she? Ever since Dad got sick, she stepped up, sure, but mostly to center stage. She rewrote everything, reassigned roles. She became the strong one. I became the reliable one. The background. The afterthought. That text didn't surprise me. It clarified things. A little voice echoed inside me. You always knew how this would end. I walked over to the pantry, pulled out my old planner, the leather one with the broken spine. I never threw away. I flipped to the last blank page and wrote something with the old blue pen I kept just for signatures. 72 hours. Then I closed it. I wasn't going to cry. Not tonight. Not for them. I was past needing them to see me. I was done begging for a seat at their rigged table. Christmases with me at the far end, nodding, while Blanche handed out gifts like royalty. Dad saying, Blanche gets things done. She's the one who'll carry the name. Hospital bills I paid without a thank you, just because someone had to. No. I wasn't shocked by the message. I was tired of pretending I hadn't seen the writing on the wall years ago. I made tea, not whiskey. I wanted my mind sharp. They thought I'd just sit this one out, like all the other times, that I'd roll over and let it pass. They didn't know. I had documents of my own, quietly gathered, quietly notarized, sitting in my lockbox for months, just in case. I didn't know when I'd need them, but now, I had a date. I looked back at the oak leaf napkin on the table. Funny thing, that napkin. It used to mean family. Now, it felt like a warning. I folded it tighter, neater, then opened the kitchen drawer, placed it inside, and shut it, and smiled. A different kind of smile. They think I'll stay quiet forever, I said softly to no one. Then I whispered again, almost a breath. They've got 72 hours. The house phone rang. Once. Twice. I didn't pick up. Not yet. I woke up before the sun had even touched the curtains. No alarm. No noise. Just that odd sense of clarity that sometimes follows a gut punch. My eyes opened, and I knew I was done waiting. No dream. No tossing. No turning. Just the kind of stillness that comes after something's snapped. The house was quiet, except for the old coffee machine sputtering to life. I poured a cup, but didn't drink it. The smell was enough to keep me anchored. I sat at the table, same spot as last night, stared at my phone. I didn't open the message again, but the time 7:43 p.m. stared back at me from the notification screen. That number sat in my chest like a brick. I pulled out a notepad and started writing. Names. Dates. Conversations. Who said what and when. Blanche always thought I wasn't paying attention. That I was too soft. Too forgiving. She was wrong. I remembered everything. Especially the things whispered when folks thought I wasn't listening. From the cabinet above the fridge, I took out the old tin box. Inside, my small fireproof safe. I placed it on the kitchen counter, turned the dial. Click. Inside was a folder labeled in my handwriting. If needed. The paper felt heavier than it was. Legal documents, email printouts, property records, things I'd tucked away without knowing if I'd ever need them. Turns out I did. They always counted on me being quiet. Reliable. Annie. The background sister. But this time, I wasn't going to be a footnote. My phone buzzed again. Group chat. Family first. I didn't even have to look to know who started it. Blanche. Message read. We'll be meeting Sunday to go over Dad's estate. Just something small. Hope everyone can make it. The passive tone hit me harder than the actual exclusion. Like it wasn't already a done deal. No. The others chimed in, Mitchell with a thumbs up. Ellen with a smiley face. No one mentioned me. I stared at the thread. Then reread Blanche's line. Dad always wanted things this way. That was the lie. 2 weeks before he died, he sat with me on the back porch, while Blanche was in town for a conference. He was tired, but clear-eyed. He'd said, I don't want them scrambling over scraps. Everything should be split clean. No games. I didn't say a word in the chat. Just stared at that smiley face from Ellen and wondered what it meant. Complicity? Ignorance? I went out to the garage. The air smelled like dust and motor oil. In the corner, under an old tarp, sat my father's army chest. I opened it slowly, the metal hinges groaning like something out of a memory. Inside, where I'd left it, was a thick envelope, and 2 documents. One was a draft of the will he'd never finished filing, but notarized anyway. I'd offered to take it to the attorney. He told me, not yet. The second item stopped me cold. A flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop, right there on the workbench. A single video file. Time-stamped. No edits. Dad, sitting at his desk, reading off what he wanted. Names, wishes, clear as day. He ended with, the loud ones always think they get the last word, but I'm not leaving room for noise. I uploaded the file to my cloud, then backed it up again. And again. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. That kind of tired that sinks into your bones. He hadn't wanted this. Not the lies. Not the manipulation. Not the circus Blanche was trying to run. Back inside, I texted a thumbs up to the group chat. That was all. Then I opened a browser window and scheduled a legal consult under a different name. After that, I called Nora. Hey, I said casually. What's going on? She asked. You only call early when something's cooking. I might need a place to crash next week. A pause. Then her voice softened. You always wait until the second match to light the fire. That's why I trust your fire. I didn't respond, just smiled. I wasn't the same woman who'd gone silent at Mum's funeral. That version of me, the one who stood in the back, hands folded, listening to Blanche spin tales at the podium. She died that day. That evening, after dishes and a short walk around the block, I was brushing my teeth when my phone buzzed again. Voicemail. No caller ID. I hit play. A male voice. Masked. Low. They know you have something. Be careful who you trust. I froze. Played it again. I knew that voice, but couldn't place it. I copied the file to my laptop and deleted it from the phone, then sat on the edge of the tub, letting the cold tile seep through me. They knew, and now I knew too. I dusted the corner sofa cushions and straightened a stack of family photo frames. Little habits learned from Mum, when the house meant something more than this silent war zone. In one frame, there we were. Blanche smiling tall, Dad in his favorite jacket, me squeezed in the corner. The forced grin in that picture felt heavier tonight. I looked around the room. Everything was neat. Too neat. Because tomorrow meant confrontation. I slipped open my planner and tucked in a folder with questions. Probate values. Signature dates. Witness names. Legal phrases I had taught myself over the years. I deleted my browser history. Cleared caches. If they ever peaked, They wouldn't see what I was preparing for. My hands trembled just enough to remind me that I hadn't fully hardened yet. Then a knock. Mitchell. He stood at the doorway with that polite smile. "Hey, Lena. I thought I'd drop by just check in." "Come in," I said. Voice even. He leaned against the doorframe, eyes scanning. "How are you holding up?" I offered a small shrug. He walked to the counter and set down a pecan pie, our father's favorite. My throat clenched. He said, "Blanche and the lawyer have been talking. She says she already met with probate counsel." His tone was casual, but the implication was sharp. I nodded slowly. "That's fast." He cleared his throat. "It's best to know sooner than later." Then he looked at me and said, "You're still going Sunday, right?" I didn't answer. I tipped my chin toward the pie. "Thank her for me." He watched me toss the pie in the trash. A soft, audible crunch of crust. Then he left. I whispered under my breath, "Kindness doesn't wash away cruelty." Later, I pulled a scarf from the closet. Mum's perfume still clung to it. I inhaled that faint scent. My stomach twisted, memory flooding in. It was Dad's last birthday. Everyone arrived late, except me. He sat across the table, pulled me aside, voice soft. "The ones who come last are often waiting to see if you'll break first." He looked at Blanche, looked at me. I swallowed. I pushed the memory down, but now it meant everything. I pressed that line on a sticky note and slipped it into my Sunday folder. My phone rang Clementine. Her voice always steadied me. "Annie, that meeting tomorrow. I'll be on standby. Whatever you need." We didn't talk law. We talked endurance. She said, "The strongest tree bends when it must. Just don't break." I closed my eyes and repeated, "I am smart. I am prepared. I am not afraid." I ended the call. "If something happens tomorrow, you know first." Then the text came. Single word. No sender. Don't. My heart flipped. I stared at it. Screenshot. Delete. Tomorrow. They'd wish they'd said more than that. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled into the estate driveway. Slower than usual. Eyes scanning every edge like I hadn't grown up walking this path. The azaleas were trimmed to perfection. The shutters repainted. It was too polished. Too clean, like someone tried too hard to dress up something rotting underneath. The front door stood open. Blanche was already there. Flawless, in beige and gold, greeting everyone like a queen on parade. I stepped out quietly, not looking at her face. Just the table behind her, decorated in white linens, and napkins folded like oak leaves. Only this time, her initials were monogrammed on each one. I used to fold those by hand when Mum got tired. She never once thanked me. I nodded once at Blanche. As I passed, kept walking. She didn't try to hug me. The others trickled in. Ellen gave me a sideways glance, and Mitchell mouthed something that looked like, "Be cool." I didn't answer. Inside, the drawing room smelled like lemon polish and control. Blanche stood at the head of the room and raised her glass. "Thank you all for being here today. This isn't just about the estate. It's about honoring Mum's legacy." She began with a rehearsed tribute. Her voice smooth, practiced, dripping in false humility. She thanked me by name for my steady presence over the years, like I was some houseplant she forgot to water. Everyone clapped politely. Then the screen dropped from the ceiling. A video montage began, pictures from charity events, hospital fundraisers, memorial dinners, faces smiling, candles flickering. She narrated each event, as though she'd planned every detail. She didn't. I had. Every call, every form, every meeting. Not once was I shown, or named in that video. I didn't flinch, just leaned back, crossed my legs, and smiled like I wasn't on fire inside. Then she clicked off the screen and announced, "Before we discuss the will, I have something to share with my children." She lifted a sleek folder. "We've created a small trust fund for future educational goals." No one looked surprised. Mitchell clapped. Ellen blinked. She looked at me and said, "Annie's already been taken care of. Historically." That word. Historically. Then the programs were passed out. I opened mine slowly. Under guests and family, my name had a single black line drawn through it. Not even erased, just crossed out. I let my thumb rest on the ink. quiet. But inside, I whispered, "They don't erase me. They erase themselves." During a break, I caught Mitchell in the hallway, whispering harshly to someone I didn't recognize. "If it wasn't legal, I don't want to be part of it," he said. Nova, Blanche's oldest, tugged at my sleeve. "Dee, I know what you did for Grandma." Her eyes were soft. I didn't respond. Just squeezed her hand and let go. Then Clementine walked in like she was late for groceries, jeans, flats, folder in hand. She didn't say a word, just caught my eye and nodded once. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a line I'd drawn in the sand. Blanche smiled from across the room. It looked real. It wasn't. Then, the door swung open. Silas, the estate caretaker, stepped in. An envelope in hand. Sealed. Thick. Red stamped. Privet. He held it up. "This was left at the gate. For both of you." Time slowed. I stood up. Folder in hand. Eyes locked on Blanche. Her face changed. But just for a second. I saw it. Silas stood between us, holding the envelope like he was afraid it might detonate. He didn't say a word, just placed it gently on the table. The air in the drawing room went still. No clinking glasses. No polite chatter. Just the heavy breath of people waiting to see which one of us would move first. Blanche smiled. All teeth. No warmth. "I'll read it for the room," she offered, reaching with a hand that looked steady, but her jaw told a different story. I slid it toward me. He addressed it to both of us. "I'll read." She didn't fight me. Didn't have to. She'd already rehearsed whatever spin she thought would come next. The envelope opened with a clean tear. Inside, a folded sheet on heavy stock. Typed. Signed by Dad's lawyer. I read it out loud. "This letter confirms the appointment of Annie L. Halden as the primary executor of the Halden estate." That was it. Silence broke into murmurs. Blanche didn't blink, but something behind her eyes did. Mitchell adjusted his collar. Ellen's lips pressed into a thin line. The others exchanged side glances, each calculating what it meant for them. Blanche tilted her head slightly. "That could be fake. Where's the original?" I folded the letter. It was sealed. Delivered directly to Silas. From Dad's attorney. She looked to the others. He was sick. Anyone could have manipulated him. She was always in his ear. I didn't flinch. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a single piece of paper. Creased. Handwritten. Dated. 2 months later. "This names me co-executor." Signed in his hand. I looked at it, then back at her. Calm. Silent. "Nothing to say?" She pushed. Ah. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and tapped the screen. A video began playing. Dad, sitting behind his chessboard. Timestamp visible in the corner. "I hereby affirm Annie Halden as sole executor of my estate. No other documents are valid, unless signed with counsel present." The room cracked. I didn't look up. I just said, "You forgot the camera he set behind his board." Blanche's throat worked to find a word that didn't come. Her hand clenched the paper. She looked at Mitchell, then Ellen, then Clementine, anyone who might step in and rescue her. Mitchell cleared his throat. "Maybe we ought to determine what he intended. No one wants to escalate this." I pointed to the last line of the typed letter. "Annie has never asked for anything, but she's the only one who earned everything." No one spoke. A message pinged my phone. "Nora. They're squirming. Don't interrupt it." Blanche poured herself a glass of wine. Hands no longer steady. She spilled some onto the rug. For her, that was a scream. Ellen leaned closer. Voice low. "Do you think he knew it would get this bad?" I didn't answer. Just stared down at the carpet. I looked at Blanche. "May I see your letter?" She pulled it back. "It's not leaving my hands." Clementine stepped forward. "Both documents should go to a third-party notary. We have one here today." Blanche's tone sharpened. "This is a family matter. We don't need outsiders involved." "That's exactly why we do," I replied, standing. Silas didn't say a word. Mitchell shifted like he might leave, then stopped. People peeled away in pairs, small whispers, some throwing careful looks back at Blanche. The room that once belonged to Dad now felt like a stage, everyone waiting to see who'd forget their lines next. Outside, the sun was starting to dip. I walked out quietly, the envelope still sealed in my grip, and locked it inside the glove compartment of my car. Just as I turned the key, I looked up. A curtain in one of the upstairs rooms moved. Someone had been watching. The gravel crunched under my tires. As I pulled down the driveway, halfway to the gate, my phone buzzed with a nearby airdrop request. I glanced down. A photo, grainy, zoomed in, Dad and I on the back porch. The caption underneath: "She got to him first." I didn't react. Not out loud, but inside. The line had been crossed. I stayed seated after everyone had cleared the room. The envelope still sat on the table, its corners bent from how many times I'd opened and closed it. The lawyer's letter inside wasn't long, but it carried weight like a falling beam. My fingers ran along the creases again, more out of reflex than reason. I already knew every word. "They knew," I whispered, voice barely audible. "They just buried it in shadows." I reached into my pocket and touched the oak leaf napkin. Dad's napkin. I'd kept it since the day he pulled me aside. His hand trembling, but his mind sharp. That napkin reminded me. He saw it coming. He just didn't live long enough to stop it. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hallway. I didn't move. Just listened. Blanche's voice. Floated in. Controlled. And clipped. She was already circling the wagons. I recognized that tone damage control. I turned off the lamp, folded the letter neatly, and slipped out through the side door of the library, keeping to the wall's edge. The hallway was dim, quiet, but not silent. Ahead, just past the archway, I could make out Mitchell's voice. "They're starting to question the narrative, Blanche. It's unraveling," she snapped. "Then weave it tighter. You think I haven't done this before?" He didn't answer right away. That silence said more than he realized. Then came the crack in his voice. "Maybe this time, they won't buy it." I held my breath. "They don't need to buy it," Blanche said. "They just need to hear it enough times to believe it." Behind a partially open door across the hallway, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Clementine. She stood completely still, phone raised, recording. Her eyes met mine for a split second. She didn't blink, just kept filming. Mitchell's voice trembled. "This isn't like before. Annie's not a kid anymore. People are listening to her." "She's nothing," Blanche hissed. "Always has been. She doesn't carry the name. That matters more than you think." I felt something settle inside me. Something cold, quiet, sharp. A figure stepped beside me silently. Nova. She didn't speak. Didn't need to. Her presence alone meant I wasn't doing this alone. The moment cracked when Blanche's heels clipped sharply on the floor, as she walked away from Mitchell. I slipped back into the library seconds before she burst in. "You think you know everything?" she spat, slamming the door behind her. I looked at her. Steady. "Why did Dad record it?" She paused. Just a breath. Then came Silas. He stood in the doorway, like his legs didn't want to carry him any further. "Mother asked me not to speak," he said, voice small. "But you deserve to know. The truth." Blanche spun around. "Silas! Not now." But he kept going. "Dad told me. He knew she was hiding things. He asked me to witness his recording. I didn't understand why, until now." Blanche's face twisted. "You were a child. You misunderstood. He made me watch it," Silas replied, his voice firmer now. He said, "One day, you'll need to know this." I reached for my phone and pressed record. Blanche's eyes followed the movement, flickering. "You really think you can trap me with a phone?" she said. "No, but I think people should hear your voice for themselves." I walked over to the side table, opened a folder I had tucked away earlier. Official documents. Paperwork with signatures, seals, dates. I laid them out, one by one. "I'm not going to scream," I told her. "I'm not going to throw things. I'm just going to show this to the court, to the family, to whoever needs to see it, step by step." Blanche tried to pivot. "She's playing victim now. How convenient." I turned to Clementine, who'd stepped into the room. "You have the hallway recording?" She nodded. "I want it played for everyone tomorrow," I said quietly. Mitchell stood in the corner, pale, silent. Nova came to my side. Silas looked like he might fall apart, but he didn't. I turned back to the group. "Let's walk through the details. Signatures. Witnesses. We don't need drama. We need facts." Blanche opened her mouth again. Another performance. Another speech. But halfway through, her voice cracked. It was small, but I heard it. People started whispering. Eyes shifted. The power in the room moved like a tide, and it was no longer in Blanche's hands. Later that night, I sat back down at the desk. The recording from Clementine played low on the speaker. Blanche's voice filled the quiet. "If she goes public, we lose everything." My phone buzzed. A new video message. Label: Dad's last words. I stared at it for a moment, then tapped. Black screen first. Then his face lined, tired, clear-eyed. "This is my true will," he said. "Don't let them twist my name." The screen went black again. I closed the laptop slowly. My jaw clenched. Not from fear, but from finality. It was midnight. I got up, slipped my coat over my shoulders, and stepped outside, into the cold. I sat at my desk early Monday morning, journal open, documents stacked, every legal draft, voice recording, and the video will update. The house was still. Even the curtains hadn't stirred. I allowed myself a moment of weakness, letting Dad's face float into my mind, remembering how tight his eyes would get when he thought someone was lying in our family. But I pushed it aside. I slipped on a tailored blouse, clean, strong, without flash. I clasped the oak leaf lapel pin Dad gave me years ago, not because I needed decoration, but because it reminded me of who I represented then and now. I called Clementine. "Today, I make them listen," she replied, quiet, but firm. "I'll be ready." I printed extra copies of Dad's sealed will update, transcripts, signatures. I stacked them neatly on the coffee table. The quiet before chaos, what they don't hear yet, is the storm forming behind my steadiness. By mid-morning, the family assembled in that same drawing room. The air felt electric. Guests exchanged uneasy smiles. Blanche stood at the head of the table, composed, as if nothing had shifted. Her eyes flicked toward me, challenging. I cleared my throat. I'd like to speak. My voice was calm. "This envelope from Monday morning matters more than you believe." A silence followed. Then I presented evidence. The co-executor document Blanche showed was backdated and contained no signature from Dad. Gasps rippled among the guests. Some stood, some covered their mouths. I continued, steady. "Your document is a shell." "This," I said, tapping. My phone, which began to play Dad's voice recorded after that draft. "This is his true intention, spoken and recorded when he was fully himself." Blanche's mouth opened, closed, her composure flickering. She stood abruptly. "That's emotional manipulation. You twist sentiment to win." I met her gaze. "This isn't drama, it's legacy. Not yours to rewrite." Then I shared a memory no one else recognized. One night, Mum prepared a meal, just for me, her way of showing she saw me. Blanche raised a toast that night, praising her strong daughter, but never acknowledged me by name. No one ever mentioned that moment in public. I told them how that small act had meant more than any speech ever given. The room grew heavy. Someone whispered, "She's rewriting history." I touched the oak leaf pin, feeling its weight, a symbol of promise. I announced that I'd arranged for unbiased witnesses, the notary who handled the envelope, a neighbor who overheard hall conversations. Blanche tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. Mitchell fidgeted in his chair. Nova's face focused on me, steady. Clementine handed me another recording. Blanche's own voice, mumbling doubt in the corridor. 2 nights ago. I played it quietly, so everyone heard. A shift occurred. I saw guests lean away from Blanche, whispers rising. Just as the tension peaked, the grand doors behind Blanche slid open. Corbin entered, leaning on a cane, his presence old, yet undeniable. He stood between us, eyes locking with mine and Blanche's. He said, "It's time to hear one last voice." I inhaled. The dining room felt like a courtroom. Chandeliers glowed too brightly, casting crisp shadows over faces. Guests murmured, softly. Forks clinked on china, as if uncertain. Blanche stood at the front, holding a framed photo, its frame polished, its image curated. I stared. My face was absent. I sat quietly, water glass in hand. My fingertips brushed the oak leaf pin, hidden, under my sleeve. I watched as she lifted the photo, hers included, others included, me excluded. The omission spoke louder than anything she'd said all day. Before we begin tonight, I said, voice steady, I want to read a letter Blanche tried to keep hidden. I held up a folded page. She snapped her eyes to me, shock in the lines of her smile. The room went still. The letter unfolded before every eye. In Mom's own handwriting. Words meant for me. Tender confessions she'd never voiced publicly. Blanche reached for it, hand trembling, and snatched it back. She wrote it, in her last lucid night. I said, quiet, final, silence, pressed in on us all. Across the wall, a grand portrait of the Hayes family loomed. Blissful smiles, arms linked, legacy on display. But one face was erased mine. I rose and pointed. Why is the ghost you fear shaped like me? Blanche stuttered something about retouching. Old photo work. I countered. Or someone removed me. Gasps darted around the table. Mitchell's lips parted. Die. Nova's eyes glistened. Blanche lifted her hand toward an empty stand beside the portrait. She declared quietly, we're removing irrelevant memorabilia. I stood upright. You can't erase someone's existence by destroying their memory. Clementine came to my side. Phone raised. She filmed the moment. Blanche's forced smile quivered. Her control wavered. I clutched the oak leaf pin like a baton. Words spilled. I read Mum's letter aloud. Lines Blanche never allowed published. Names, dates, moments. Others buried. I named the voices that were silent. The hands that looked away. The complicity no one confessed. The guests shifted. Some gasped. Others stared hard. At Blanche, her throne now shaky. She tried to interrupt. I held up a hand. My mother's truth isn't yours to destroy. I call for a public executor. No more hidden doors. No more silent signatures. Silence swelled. All eyes fixed. On Blanche. Then behind her, the portrait teetered. Glass cracked. It crashed to the floor in shards. Hearts jumped. I stepped forward. She stumbled back. Words were no longer enough. I stood over the glass. Bits of the family portrait scattered at my feet, each one reflecting distorted faces mine nowhere to be seen. Blanche stood across from me, her chin raised, but the strain around her eyes gave her away. No more games. No more waiting. I held the oak leaf pin between my fingers. I want you to acknowledge it, Blanche. The recording. The sealed letter. Say it now. In front of them. Her silence was louder than any outburst. I pulled a folded check from my jacket. Clean edges. Dated last month. This is the last check you'll ever cash in my name. People stiffened. Blanche's lips parted. But no words came. I added. Quiet but firm. This is closure. Yours or mine. In the hush that followed, Clementine stepped forward, holding a legal folder. The lawyer she brought in nodded. Probate begins immediately. The recording meets all legal thresholds. The guests shifted. Blanche reached for her purse. Her lawyer motioned toward the door. But they didn't get far. A wall of bodies formed guests who had once clapped politely, now standing still. Arms crossed. Mitchell hesitated, caught between them and me. He looked like he might speak, but said nothing. Nova came to my side. Slipped her hand in mine. You did it, she whispered. I watched as Blanche's name was crossed from the documents. Her co-executor role revoked. My father's true words clear, dated, indisputable. Restored his intentions, and my place. They tried to bury him under paperwork. Tried to silence him. Now, their words unraveled. Hours later, the room had emptied. I slipped away to the library, still holding the folder. The house was still, except the soft hum of the ceiling fan, and my father's voice again. This house wasn't built by her guilt, but by her love, he said in the recording. I closed my eyes. Not out of grief, but something else. Peace. Maybe. I picked up the old oak leaf napkin, now worn soft and thin, and tucked it inside the wooden chest. Dad left me years ago. A quiet filled the room. Not hollow. Full. Somewhere. I imagined his voice again, not speaking this time. Just nodding. By the time the last car had rolled off the estate, and the gravel path settled back into silence, Blanche had been escorted out. She didn't look at me on the way out. Just a stiff nod. I didn't return it. Not out of anger. Not anymore. Back home, I clicked the porch light off, turned the lock, and let the stillness take over. I whispered aloud to the dark. Tonight, the silence finally speaks. At sunrise, a letter slid under my door. From Nova's school, a scholarship in Mum's name, bearing mine as founder. I read it twice, smiled once. Later that morning, the town paper ran the headline, Hayes family secret exposed. I stood in front of my mirror, pinned the oak leaf to my sweater. I was always here, I said, just loud enough for myself. This wasn't the end. Not really. But the weight had shifted, and this time, the voice left standing was mine.